This is the Meraki espresso machine. I'm sure you've probably seen it on social media or here on YouTube with some other reviews. It seems to have made quite a splash on the coffee scene. I've had two prototype units that I've been using for the last few months that I've been using on a daily basis, kind of testing, giving feedback to the Meraki team, and also communicating with them about the process of their development and where they're at in the stage and what the full production version is going to look like compared to these two that I have here, which is what we're going to get into today. But before we do a deep dive and start talking about this machine, I definitely need to thank Meraki for sending me two of these prototype machines to test and review and to share with you guys. They've been super awesome. They're very responsive via email. They're sending me updates on a regular basis about the development and the upgrades that are coming, things that have changed along the way for the prototype versions. And they've just been really cool to work with. And I've been really impressed with them as a company and with their communication. I didn't pay for them. They were free, but they don't have any say in what I say in this video, and they don't get to see it before you do. So right away, I do want to say, spoiler alert, I really like this espresso machine. Even with the few things I think could be better with it, which we'll definitely talk about in this video, I have really enjoyed using it on a daily basis. I've had many different types of espresso machines over the years and many different setups with different grinders and all kinds of different things, just like I'm sure a lot of you out there have. I just always felt like I gravitated more to doing filter brewing at home and getting nerdier about that and getting results I really enjoyed more consistently than I was getting with home espresso. I think my mindset has maybe changed a little bit on that with using the Meraki espresso machine. Now, that doesn't mean it's not without its quirks, and obviously there's still more involved with brewing espresso, even with a machine like the Meraki versus doing filter brewing, but it has definitely changed my mindset and my desire to want to do espresso at home. So obviously there are a lot of really great, excellent espresso machines out there on the market for the home, environment, and there are a lot of them that do a better job with certain things. There are a lot of them that give you more data. Even though the Meraki has a lot of tech in it, it has a nice touchscreen and user interface, there are other espresso machines that do give you more real-time data and allow you to have more control over finite details and things you can do and pressure profiling and stuff like that that the Meraki doesn't do, but I don't believe that that was the intention of the Meraki. The intention of this machine is to give people an easy-to-use, user-friendly, repeatable, consistent experience with making delicious home espresso. It does have mostly automated or automatic controls, but it also does have enough manual control and settings and parameters and things you can change to really tailor it to what you want to do that I think a lot of us coffee nerds can really get behind. So once you get a coffee dialed in with the full control that you have over those settings and parameters, the machine will just consistently execute that until you make changes again. Or you can make changes to those settings every time you use the machine. It's completely up to you. So even though there's a lot of tech and a lot of automation and automatic controls of this, there is a lot of manual user input that to me makes a world of difference when you compare this to some other automatic espresso machines. So now that you know a little bit about what this machine can do, let's talk about the features and the accessories that it comes with. I'm also going to go over the usability of these features and accessories in this section and kind of make a combined sort of hybrid features, accessories, usability, workflow sort of section, so make sure you pay attention. The Meraki utilizes a true dual boiler system with a dedicated stainless steel 350 milliliter brew boiler and a dedicated stainless steel 550 milliliter steam boiler. Now, this isn't anything new or groundbreaking when it comes to home espresso machines. There are tons of great dual boiler machines out there on the market, but what it does mean in comparison to some other newer machines, especially ones that are using thermal blocks and some cheaper machines, is that it's going to maintain temperature consistency. It's going to be easier, obviously, to pull back-to-back shots with consistency. You're going to be able to steam and pull a shot at the same time to speed up your workflow. I really love dual boiler machines for those specific reasons. It uses a PID controller to monitor the inputs and outputs in real time and make changes to what the machine is doing in real time. This is what enables you to have full control over the settings and parameters that you input, but then the machine takes over and automates what's happening in the machine, the control of those components inside the machine to achieve those targets that you've set. If you've heard the term PID or PID controller before but don't exactly know what that acronym means, let me break it down for you. PID stands for proportional, integral, and derivative, which in layman's terms just means the controller takes input data and what's happening in real time with the machine, calculates it very quickly, and then makes changes in real time to the output of the machine, what's actually happening to the machine and what it's doing mechanically to achieve those targets and parameters that you set. It does this by using a host of built-in sensors and scales that give feedback to the controller. It has a really quiet rotary pump, which, thanks to that PID controller, allows you to do pre-infusion and maintains a consistent 9 bars of pressure when pulling a shot. This is one of the things that I've really enjoyed the most with the machine. All the espresso machines I've had in the past have had really loud vibratory pumps, Rotary pumps are also typically found in higher end machines or more commercial machines. And so it just sort of gives it this like higher end feel having that type of pump and that type of sound. Something I'd really like to see for future software updates is maybe brew pressure control and real-time readout of the brew pressure on the user interface while you're pulling a shot. The low pressure pre-infusion that I mentioned earlier is really nice. It works really well, and it has 2 settings for either 3 bars or 4 bars of pressure. It can be set from 2 seconds all the way up to 30 seconds depending on your preference and the coffee you're brewing and what you want to do with it, or you can select to turn it off and not use pre-infusion at all. They did tell me that they are planning to make some updates to the pre-infusion settings to simplify it. I don't know exactly what that looks like, so that may be different come production version versus what I'm telling you now, but currently the machine that I have that's sort of the third version of the prototype that's really close to the production version, that's how it's currently set up. But just know there may be some changes to some of the things we talk about today from the current version that I'm, used to using that's really close to a production version versus what may come in the actual final production version. But I am going to tell you along the way what I know to be changing to the best of my knowledge up to date as we go through this video. It has a large 2,000 milliliter water tank, which is really nice because I don't have to fill it up near as much as I've had to fill up other espresso machines. And it's also clear all the way around so you can see the water level from a lot of different angles. The drip tray is really heavy duty and has this nice aluminum grill on the top, which looks really good, but it is made of multiple pieces, so it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt to clean than some other espresso machines drip trays. However, it has a really large 650 milliliter capacity, which means you're not cleaning it as often as other espresso machines. It has a float built in to let you know when the drip tray is getting full and you should start thinking about emptying it. And also the drip tray spans the entire front of the machine, which just helps with general cleanliness of the machine, keeping the mess, keeping most of the moisture and even some of the possible coffee grounds that go down into the drip tray instead of being all over the machine. I have heard some people complaining that some milk particles and purging after you've textured milk, the milk getting down into the drip tray can start to smell after a while. I haven't experienced that because I only drink oat milk or some other alternative milk, so I haven't used actual dairy milk that could potentially smell. So that could be a problem, but I haven't personally experienced that. Next up, let's take a look at the built-in grinder. Now, honestly, I'm not a fan typically of built-in grinders, but Meraki did team up with Time More on this, which is good because Time More does make nice grinders. It utilizes a pretty standard style small conical burr set. I've been getting really great tasty shots with good texture and good sweetness and even a good amount of sort of clarity and flavor separation. Way better than I was expecting what I was going to get from a built-in grinder. The only complaint I've had with this grinder is in the first version of the prototype of this machine that I had. It stalled constantly, almost every single time I tried to use it. I gave my feedback to Meraki on that. They were really responsive and said, hey, we're aware. We've had some other testers have the same issue. We're looking into what's going on with the grinder. We're going to be making some changes. And I can honestly say in this second version, which is the third version of the prototype, but the second one that I have, I've barely had any issues with it stalling. The only times I've had it stall with this newest version of the machine is when I'm using a really lightly roasted coffee and I'm initially getting it dialed in and I have the grind finer than it probably should be. But once I get the grind setting to where I'm getting the good results I want from pulling a shot and I'm getting the taste I want in the cup, I haven't had any issues with the grinder stalling, which is really good. So they've obviously taken that feedback to heart. Can you get better tasting coffee from using a grinder with better burrs? Sure. But the convenience of having a built-in grinder that works this good, again, with the newest version of the machine, works as good as it does, and is giving me the flavors that it's giving me that I've been really pleased with. To me, it's worth the convenience and the less of a hassle to use the built-in grinder versus using another grinder, just again for convenience and speed and workflow. And if you're somebody that isn't as deep into coffee and doesn't have multiple different coffee grinders for different brewing methods, or this is kind of like your first espresso machine and maybe you're just getting into home coffee, this built-in grinder being as good as it is really impressive, which I think is going to make a lot of people happy. This grinder does have an ionizer built into the exit chute, which is really nice. It's actually probably one of the cleaner grinders I've used that has an ionizer. I've barely seen any coffee particles. I haven't had any, chaff sticking or static or anything on the front of this grinder since using it on a daily basis, which is really impressive. It's honestly sort of seems to be a cleaner grinder than some of my more expensive grinders that also have ionizers built into them. Another cool feature of this grinder is that it uses grind by weight. It's got a scale down here under where the magnetic dosing cup goes in, under the exit chute, and you can select the amount of coffee you want as an output weight in the user interface and hit run, and it will grind until it reaches that target dose amount and then automatically turn the grinder off for you. And it's honestly really accurate too. I've been comparing before and after the weight of a dosing cup using a scale that I know to be accurate outside of the machine, and I've been getting within 0.2 grams accuracy, which is pretty good. You can also utilize the grinder in manual mode. It will still show you the grind amount output in weight because the scale is still measuring, and it still shows you that grind output in real time, but you're the one that's in control of starting and stopping the grinder. And I have found this feature to come in really handy for purging out the grinder if I have a little bit of coffee left in there and I want to clean the grinder, or purging between grind size changes, which I recommend you always do, just to make sure you're getting the most consistent grind possible. So having that manual feature built in is really nice. Speaking of grind size changes, that's one of the only things you can't do through the user interface. You have to use the manual grind adjuster on the body of the grinder just below the hopper to make changes to the grind size. What is cool though is it shows you in real time as you're making grind size changes, the change in the grind number that's associated with that grind size. It would be really cool if there was automated grind adjustment though, but I'm sure that would have made the machine cost a lot more. Another cool thing that this machine does by weight and uses a scale for is pulling your actual shot of espresso. Having a built-in scale that communicates with the machine is awesome. This is the first espresso machine that I've had that has built-in grind by weight or brew by weight scales like this, and it's really convenient. You don't have to use a small little external espresso scale anymore and try to fit things under the group head, and it's just seamless. It's built in and it's really nice. It's honestly like using an Apple product. That's like the closest thing that I can compare it to. Everything is just seamless and built in, and it works and it's nice. If you want, you can also use the manual paddle on the top of the group head to start and stop your shot. It will still show you shot time and the weight of the shot, but you will be in control of manually starting and stopping the shot. That's an option to do if you want as well. If you want that experience of pulling the paddle over and starting the shot, you can totally do that with this machine. It doesn't all have to be automated, which is cool. This machine uses a 58mm portafilter and an E61 style group head. The construction and build is nice. The wood handle feels really nice, and the fact that they include a 2-spout attachment, or you can run it as a naked basket by pulling that attachment off, is really cool. Also, being the standard 58mm size portafilter means you can use 58mm aftermarket baskets. I've been testing and using the different MHW3 bomber baskets that I have, and some Normcore baskets that I have, and even a VST basket that I have. They all fit in here exactly the same, just like they would in any other 58mm portafilter. One thing to note about this E61 style group head and portafilter is that this seems to be the style that uses the thicker locking tabs on the side of the portafilter. These are thicker than other E61 style group head machines like the Breville machines, and those portafilters will not work in this group head. So if you have an E61 style portafilter already that you really like, that you were planning on using with this, but it's from a Breville machine or one of the machines that uses that style E61 group head, it's not going to work, unfortunately, with this machine. I will say that the portafilter can be a little stiff and difficult to tighten, especially the first few times you use the machine. I noticed this on the first prototype version I have and on this second prototype version that I have. They were a little hard to lock in, but over time, sort of working them in over the past few months, it's gotten a lot easier to lock in. And I've also noticed that on some other espresso machines as well. But I do know that Meraki is aware that sometimes they feel stiff and sometimes they feel like you really have to crank them in there to seat them. And it is something that they're continuing to work on in the development of the group head and the portafilters before the production versions. Another really cool thing with this group head is that it's independently heated and you can control the group head temperature. It helps with heat up times, and more importantly, it helps maintain temperature in the group head, especially when pulling shots back to back. Underneath the group head, there's a hot water spout. So if you like doing Americanos or long blacks or just want to get hot water from the machine while it's on, you can do that here. The only thing I wish in the user interface was a scale readout. It would be really nice to see that scale reading in real time so you can accurately measure out a specific amount of water. Not sure why that wasn't already thought of and built into the user interface, but hopefully on a future software update, we'll see that. Seems like a pretty easy thing. To keep the group head and the machine clean, they've included a really handy back flush sequence that you can run through the user interface. All you do is pop out the 18-gram basket that comes in the portafilter and pop in the blind basket, install the portafilter like you normally would, and just run the back flush sequence, and it's that easy. It does the whole sequence for you, cleans the group head, and lets you know when it's done. The steam that this produces is really dry, and also the steam wand is cool touch, which is really nice, so you're not going to burn yourself by manipulating or moving the steam wand around while the machine is on. You will want to be careful because if you get really low on the steam wand towards the tip, that can be really hot, especially after you've textured or steamed milk with it. I've burned myself on my fair share of steam wands, and it's not fun. Another really cool thing about this steam wand, though, is you'll notice here on the tip, there's a little thing that sticks out, and that is a temperature probe. So, thanks to the PID controller, this uses a temperature probe input to know what temperature your milk is at, and you can run a program and select what temperature you want to steam your milk to, and then just hit play, It'll steam it. You can texture your milk and tilt your pitcher and do all the things you want to do to aerate your milk the way you want and make nice, really silky microfoam. And then it will automatically shut off when it reaches that temperature that you've selected that you don't want to steam your milk past. So that is really cool, and I've really enjoyed using that. There are 3 levels of steam power that you can choose from. I'm always on high with my steam, but you can choose whatever you want and experiment and see what you like and what works best for you. Just like with brewing, if you prefer to manually operate your steam and manually start and stop your steam, there is a paddle at the top of the steam tower or steam boiler that you can manually run. It will still show you the temperature on the screen, but it will not stop the program for you when it reaches a specific temperature. You will have to turn it off. So that is another manual option you can use if you prefer to do it that way. I do like the touchscreen and user interface overall, although I do wish they gave you some options to maybe customize it or at least just change the background color to something you prefer. I think that would be really cool. You can connect the Meraki to Wi-Fi, so you can take advantage of doing software and firmware updates. I think that's one of the really cool things about gear and the technology that we have in this day and age. You can just get a software or firmware update to your espresso machine overnight and unlock new features. So I think that's really cool. You can also take advantage of the preheat function that the machine has, and you can have it preheat at a specific time. So that way, like when you get up in the morning, you'll have a hot espresso machine ready to go. All you have to do is do your puck prep and pull a shot, and you're out the door on your way to work. That much easier and that much quicker. Another thing that's really cool with the tech of this machine is that it has a built-in RFID reader. And I know that Meraki is planning to partner with coffee roasters to develop recipes. So what that means is, just like with something like the X Bloom, you could get a bag of coffee from a coffee roaster that's participating in this program with them. You tap it on the back of the machine. It'll change all the settings in the machine and give you a suggested grind size to utilize to experience that coffee the way the roaster intended it to be experienced. We've obviously already seen this technology in play with the X Bloom coffee machine, but I think it's just another thing that I'm glad to see manufacturers taking advantage of to get more people into specialty coffee and experiencing coffee, the way it should be experienced. So I think that that's really cool, and I was glad to see something like that built into this. Considering all the other tech it has, I feel like it would have been a missed opportunity to leave something like that out. As for the included accessories, we've obviously already talked about the portafilter, the 18-gram basket, the twin spout attachment, the blind basket for back flushing, and the magnetic dosing cup. But it also comes with this really nice wooden tamp station, an all-metal distribution tool and tamp, a nice milk pitcher, a cleaning brush, and a microfiber towel. As far as the build quality goes, the first prototype machine I received definitely had some fitment issues and some opportunities with the build quality. The water tank lid was warped and didn't sit flat, and the manual brewing and steaming paddles just felt kind of cheap and had a lot of excessive play in them. We have to keep in mind that this is a prototype, and you're going to have flaws with a prototype. But as a prototype with some flaws, I'm still overall really impressed with the first version of this machine I received. Fast forward to the next version of the machine that I have here, which is closer to the production version, and I am really impressed. They have resolved all the things that I thought made the machine feel cheap and were the flaws of the prototype, like the water tank lid now sits nice and flat and flush, and it feels much better. The manual paddles for brewing and steaming have been changed to aluminum. They're machined very nicely. They fit the top of the machine much better, and they just have a way better, sturdier, and a little bit stiffer feeling, which just makes the whole machine feel that much better. Obviously, they're passionate about the development of this machine, and they're putting a lot of thought into it and taking a lot of feedback from the testers and the people in the community that have already been using and experiencing this machine. One thing to note is that the majority of the body of this machine, like the grinder assembly, the brew tower, the steam tower, and the base of the machine, are all made from plastic. It seems to be a nice plastic with a nice finish on it, but it is plastic, so I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. I would compare it to how the Breville machines are made. Everything that's important that should be made out of metal is made out of metal and made out of nice metal and machined very nicely, and then the other components are made out of plastic to save money and time. I know that Meraki is still working on some final improvements for the production version. I know that they're also working on a software tutorial that's going to be included for first-time users to be able to more easily navigate the machine and its features and understand how to get it, up and running and get using it much quicker. They're also continuing to make improvements to the UI, the group head fitment for the portafilter, like we already talked about, and the grinder itself. I know they're continuing to make advancements there to make that experience, flawless for people, hopefully. And I also know that they are partnering with Third Wave Water to develop specific recipes to use with this machine for water that they're going to include with the machine. I know we just went over a lot of stuff and touched on a lot of details, and I hope you learned something about the Meraki from this video, but what does all of that mean for the end user? I think a machine like this enables more people to get involved with home coffee and specialty coffee specifically, hopefully. And that's a great thing. The more people that can enjoy coffee, the more demand there is for specialty coffee, the better that is for coffee roasters. Being able to partner with Meraki and utilize this RFID technology to be able to sell more coffee and get more coffee, good coffee, into the hands of consumers that can then have a less frustrating experience at home to get a coffee dialed in and enjoy it and want to go back and buy more of that coffee from that same roaster. I just feel like something like this sort of benefits everyone. For a long time, I was sort of anti-technology when it came to the coffee brewing experience. I very much enjoy doing everything myself, but after using a machine like this for a while and learning and understanding how this technology and automation can help us make better coffee and have a better experience, but also a machine like this that still gives us control over those details, I think just marries the general coffee user experience and the coffee enthusiast experience and makes it better for everyone. With a starting MSRP of $1,799 US, it's definitely not cheap. That's a lot of money. It's almost $2,000 to spend on a coffee maker. For that price, this machine packs a lot of features and a lot of technology that's really impressive that I think is definitely going to disrupt the home espresso market. I know it's definitely made an impact on me and changed the way I feel about home espresso. If you want to check out Meraki's website or their Indiegogo page, I've linked those things down in the description for you. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one.